could please do roll call.
Okay. Councilmember Oliver.
Present.
Councilmember Fung.
Here.
Councilmember Pappen.
Present.
Vice Mayor Leva.
Here.
Mayor Snyder.
Present.
All council members are present.
Thank you. And tonight, the Millbrae Leos Executive Committee will be leading us in our Pledge of Allegiance. So if everyone could please join. And Leos, could you hang around for a few minutes after you finish the pledge? So if you could all please join me in standing for the pledge. And we have Leos Daphne, Kayen, David, Isabel, and Brian.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, moving into ceremonial presentations, I wanted to start this item first by saying thank you for the Leos joining us tonight. And thank you for the work that they have done in collecting over 500 pounds of plastic bags. And the reason for our park bench project, the nation has gone through another tragedy in the last week with the senseless murder of Asian women and other people in Atlanta to the shooting last night in Boulder. And it made me really grateful and thankful for the Leos, for the work that they've done, for the work of so many of our community groups in keeping us in it. It made me think of President Kennedy's comment or quote of ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. So in this very sad time, as our hearts go out to the families and friends of the people lost to senseless violence in the last week, I am grateful that we have the Leos and all our other young people who do so many tremendous things for the city of Millbrae. So I'm very proud of you, of all of our Leos, and I thank you for joining us tonight. Okay, thank you. All right, Councilwoman Pappen, if you could please read the proclamation proclaiming March 25th, 2021 as Greek Independence Day.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On March 25th, 1821, the people of Greece declared their independence and liberty from the Ottoman Empire, which had occupied Greece for nearly 400 years. And on that day, Bishop Eurakimos of Patros raised the Greek flag at the monastery of Agia Larvos, inciting the Peloponnese to rise against their oppressors. And after many years of war, with the Allied support from Great Britain, France, and Russia, the people of Greece won their independence from the Ottoman Empire on September 14th, 1829. And Greek Independence Day is celebrated with patriotic speeches, parades, military demonstrations across Greece. There are parades organized by schools where children wear their Greek dress and march while dressed in traditional costumes. Popular Greek foods on Greek Independence Day are bakalarios and skodia, and the city of Millbrae recognizes Greek Independence Day and honors the heritage of more than 1.3 Greek American descendants and many who live in the city of Millbrae. Now, therefore, we, the members of the Millbrae City Council, do hereby proclaim March 25th, 2021 as Greek Independence Day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Elaine, if you could please bring up, and any council members, any comments? Very good. And if we could move on to proclamation proclaiming March 31st, 2021 as Cesar Chavez Day. And I believe and the people who will be accepting the proclamation, if you could get ready. So I believe this is the first time Millbrae has formally recognized a number of our Latin community's contributions to the state of California and to people and to us. So it's with great honor that we proclaim today. Cesar Chavez was born on March 31st, 1927 in Yuma, Arizona, on a small farm that his grandfather homesteaded in the 1880s. And whereas during the Great Depression, his family lost their home and livelihood, Chavez left school in the 7th grade to work alongside his family in the fields of California, where he experienced dismal working conditions, racism, abuse, and exploitation. And whereas in 1962, Cesar Chavez founded the National Farm Workers Association, the NFWA, later to become the United Farm Workers, he raised awareness about the hardships farm workers faced while being denied basic human rights. And whereas Chavez led a historic march of farm workers from Delano to Sacramento in 1965 and conducted several hunger strikes to reaffirm his lifelong commitment to nonviolent resistance, Cesar Chavez's heroic leadership also protected farm workers and their children from exposure to harmful pesticides. And whereas on August 8, 1994, Cesar Chavez became the second Mexican American to receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honor in the United States. Whereas each year on March 31st, we celebrate the birth and legacy of one of America's greatest champions for social justice. On March 28, 2024, President Barack Obama declared Cesar Chavez Day a national holiday. And now, therefore, we, the members of the Millbrae City Council, do hereby proclaim March 31st, 2021 as Cesar Chavez Day. And I have Gina Miranda. I didn't check the list to make sure you were with us. If Gina is accepting this.
I'm here, Ann.
There you go, Gina.
I accept it.
Do you have any comments?
No, just that he did great work, and what I'm most proud of is how he connected with all different communities to do his work. It wasn't just Latin American field workers. It was field workers of all races that needed this type of community. So I accept on behalf of Millbrae Anti-Racism Coalition, ARC.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Miranda. Any council comments?
Yes,
I have a
Madam-
comment.
Please go ahead, Councilwoman. And then Ms. Oliva after that.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, we have done this before. So it's
Oh, we
not the
have,
first
okay.
time. Yes. So, and it's a great honor to do so. Thank you.
My apologies. Vice Mayor.
I think it's a great honor, and it's great timing with all of what's going on the border with regards to thousands of immigrant workers that are coming our way that need to have somebody like Cesar Chavez making sure that their rights and their concerns are dealt with 100%. So if we've done in the past, that's fantastic. It needed to be acknowledged, but it really needs to be acknowledged, and make sure that we celebrate Cesar Chavez Day for everybody that is coming to try to make this American dream work for them.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilman, anyone else? I'm the oldest, I think, of the council members, and I have memories of boycotting grapes in the 60s. So it's great to be able to celebrate his life and legacy, and especially at this time with COVID, where we all get to stay home safe while farm workers are bringing food to our tables, and to recognize that they work in a very difficult environment. They're out in the sun or they're out in the rain. It's hard, backbreaking work, and we live because they work for us in those conditions, and we can strive to make their conditions better. So thank you. And I've heard from some of my other friends who actually are celebrating March 31st. I don't know what we're going to do in Millbrae, but if we hear things, please let us know, and let's get it on next door so how we can celebrate March 31st. Elaine, if you could please bring up the proclamation for Dolores Huerta. Now, I have to admit, I did homework on this, and thank you, City Clerk, and really amazing woman to celebrate both for her Latin heritage, but also as a true hero for International Women's Month. So the city of Millbrae proclaims, whereas Dolores Huerta was born on April 10th, 1930 in Dawson, New Mexico. She was exposed to community activism at a young age as her father was a farm worker and union activist. And whereas Huerta was taught by her family to give back to her community and be a voice and advocate for the working people of California, Huerta's own experience of discrimination and her innate sense of justice led to join forces with Cesar Chavez. And whereas she co-founded or is a co-founder of the United Farm Workers Association, Huerta organized workers, negotiated contracts, and advocated for safer working conditions, including the elimination of harmful pesticides. She also fought for unemployment and healthcare benefits. Whereas Huerta was a recipient of many awards, as she was the first Latina inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame in 1993 and was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2016. And whereas she also created the Dolores Huerta Foundation, which provides civic engagement, education, LGBTQIA+ equality, health, and youth development programs to low-income communities. And whereas Huerta continues to be a powerful force for social justice and empowerment for all, through her leadership, she continues to build upon her legacy of civic engagement by advocating for the working poor, women, and children. And whereas we recognize the profound impact Dolores Huerta has made on countless Americans and her lifelong commitment to justice for all, and many trails she has paved for generations of activists, now therefore we, the members of the Millbrae City Council, do hereby proclaim April 10th, 2021 as Dolores Huerta Day. And I see that we've got one member from the public. Gina, I know you're accepting this. I'm very excited to learn more about this amazing woman.
Well, lucky for you, I've met her before, and just wanted to share with everyone that she is 90 years old. She is still out there today doing these events. And the reason that my thing is, how can you still be impassioned about this and doing this every day for 70 years pretty much since she was young? And to your point, Anne, I think the reason is that all you have to do is go out to the Central Valley and see how freaking disgustingly hot it is out there. And you're in a nice air-conditioned car driving down the highway, and you see these workers out there, and they have to not just wear heavy clothing, but they have to be in this heat in that heavy clothing and protect themselves from those pesticides and all the nastiness that we need for our food. And we just need to figure out a better way to do it. And she's continuing to lead the path for that. So I accept this award on behalf of the Millbrae Anti-Racist Coalition, ARC.
Excellent, thank you. I did field work down in Monterey, and I passed the strawberry fields when I drove a couple times a week. And we love our strawberries, but they're terribly heavy, involved in pesticides. So yes, to see the workers making sure that we have lovely fruit to eat, fighting to reduce the impact of pesticides on all of us and on our farm workers is so critically important. If council members, if not, I've got Grace. City Clerk, if you could unmute Grace.
Grace is unmuted.
Hi, Grace. I see Grace's hand up, so welcome.
Hi, I would like to make a public comment, please, if I may.
Is this on this issue, on a topic later in the agenda?
No. I wanted to do a public comment.
That is later on the agenda.
Yeah, we'll get to public comments.
No, I know. Right, no, I've been waiting. That's right. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right. With that, thank you, Gina, and we will get those proclamations to you. Now we've got proclaiming April as the time to celebrate Diversity Month. And here's where I'm going to really make a mistake with a pronunciation. Is it Ninwa? Ninwa Cheng, if you could be ready. The City of Millbrae proclamation, whereas Celebrate Diversity Month was founded in 2004 to recognize and honor the different cultures, backgrounds, and life experiences of people throughout the world. And whereas the United States of America was founded on the principles of freedom and equality, we are a country of immigrants where all are welcome. And whereas America's history has taught us that we must always recognize and celebrate the diversity of all the people who have made our country great and never forget who we are and where we come from. And whereas celebrating differences and similarities during this month is important because it will allow people to get a deeper understanding of one another. And whereas the City of Millbrae recognizes, appreciates, and celebrates the heritage and life experiences of all, now therefore we, the members of the Millbrae City Council, do hereby proclaim April 2021 as Celebrate Diversity Month. And we encourage our community and our businesses to use this month to welcome, learn, and understand the people from all over the world to celebrate Diversity Month. And Ms. Cheng, tell me how badly I messed up on your first name. My apologies.
Well, actually, you said very, very good. Nianhua. Yes.
Thank you. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. Would you like to share anything with us?
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor Schneider and the council members to do this to recognize the importance about the cultural diversity. And then we all know we all want Millbrae to be a safe and a pleasant place for all the residents and the visitors here. And we all know that to embrace the cultural differences and to respect people with different cultural background is really important for us to live and work together. And this is our Millbrae Cultural Committee's mission to build a stronger community with cultural diversity and to foster open forums and activities for Millbrae. So we will continue to provide more cultural programs to ensure the diversified culture of Millbrae is celebrated and preserved for all. And in the future that we will support the Ramallah Festival and we will do International Youth Day. And we welcome everyone to join us to reach the goal. And thank you.
Well, thank you. Council, let me find my notes here. When Wayne Lee, and I see that former Mayor Wayne Lee is in our Zoom room, he had wanted to bring an international day and life got busy and then COVID hit. So I'm going to bring up having an international day at the Mayor's Civic Coordinating meeting on Thursday in the hope that in April 2022, we can all safely gather in person. And I encourage all of our community groups, and I know we've got many community groups from different countries and we haven't formally brought them in, but if you are out there, please reach out to me and we will start planning on something for next year. And I hope that former Mayor Wayne Lee will also work with me on making International Day next year for Cultural Diversity Month. So Ms. Cheng, I'm very glad that you joined us. And Council, I do see former Mayor Lee. Please go ahead, Wayne.
Thank you, Mayor Schneider. Appreciate the opportunity. Actually, MCC has been Millbrae Culture Committee. Again, has been working really hard to try to build the bridges in the culture, different cultures, and I'm very saddened to see that they've been attacked and asked to be investigated. And then the really sad part was when people started saying that they were trying to buy people's by influence and by acceptance. And that really breaks my heart because these people work really hard to try to bring cultural awareness to the city, because nowadays, we're really having a difficult time. Sorry. take off my video. We're having a very difficult time with the harassment and assaults and murders of Asians. They increased 150% tax on Asians. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because there's going to be a press conference tomorrow at 11 o'clock at San Mateo Central Park. And the Police Chief Association will address and make strong statements against the racist attacks. And then on Saturday, there will be a Zoom panel with the sheriff and the district attorney to speak about the racism that's going on. And I hope that people can join. And you can join by going to smcapi.org. That's San Mateo County Asian Pacific Islanders, smcapi.org. So Mayor, I just thank you for doing this proclamation. It is important to celebrate our diversity and also recognize that there is diversity. And diversity is really important because you don't want to, it's like if you didn't have diversity, you'd just be eating hamburgers every day. And I think that's pretty boring. So I really do enjoy the opportunities to meet and learn about other cultures. And hopefully we can defeat the racism and misogyny that's been going on. It's been just horrendous. And I think that we all have, and the only way we're going to defeat this is to recognize our diversity and stand together. So the International Day, yes, that's something that MCC is working on together. So I'm glad that you want to participate. I think that we can, I think you'll be a fantastic and powerful voice to that project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, former Mayor Lee. Councilwoman Pappen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We are strong as a community through our diversity, and we are very, very proud of that. And when these terrible things happen, any attacks on our Asian residents, our community, any verbal assaults, anything like that is an attack on all of us. And we will not stand for any of it. We do stand strong with our entire community, and we really appreciate people coming together. The ARC group in particular, Millbrae's Anti-Racist Coalition, very, very helpful. But we stand strong as a diverse community, and we will not tolerate any such acts. Please, everyone, watch out for your neighbors, support this community, because that gives us strength overall. Thank you.
Well said, Councilwoman Pappen. And a few weeks ago, Chief Kunkel, our police chief, did say that, you know, if you have been harassed, to please report it, because then our police can respond to it. So you do not have to turn the other cheek. You do not have to keep quiet on this. Please tell the city of Millbrae so that we can make sure that we can stay on top of it and keep everyone safe, especially all of our people, and especially our elder people. We talked about this a couple of council meetings ago. There should never be violence against anyone, but the violence against our Asians, our Asian elders, and our elders in general is just unthinkable and unspeakable to me. So I know the chief is here, but he's already said that, and we sent out, if you haven't already, join SMC Alert so that you can get the updates from our police department on the activities that they're doing. But please, if something happens, tell us so that we can follow up on it. Okay, thank you very much. And our last one is April is also National Rosacea Month. I'm not going to read the proclamation. Rosacea is a skin disorder that happens to adults, usually in your 30s or 40s. People are embarrassed to speak out about it. And when it's not controlled, it can cause growth on your skin. For example, that red nose that some actors have had, President Clinton had, that was from rosacea. That was not from being an alcoholic. So this particular disease can lead to many very, very visual skin disorders, and it can lead to discrimination and harassment in the workplace and within the social environment. So the reason I keep this on the agenda every year is it is woefully undiagnosed and misdiagnosed. If you are experiencing adult acne. It is not adult acne. Please see your doctor. There are treatments for it. And people, if you see people who tend to flush, this is a disease that affects over 16 million Americans. It has traditionally affected those of us who come from the redheaded parts of the world. So Northern Europeans, but I have friends who are Italians. I have friends from India who also have rosacea. It can affect any racial group. So if you notice this, please speak to your doctor. And with that, I will move us on to the City Council member on agenda overview and staff briefing. And thank you for all of the public who joined us tonight on celebrating our amazing diversity.
Madam Mayor, this is Joan, your city attorney. Don't you normally vote on the proclamations? I was wondering if you wanted to have a motion and a second and a vote on all of the proclamations that have come before you.
I don't think we've ever done that.
You don't vote? Okay.
Never done that.
I know I'm trying to go, my first couple council meetings, it went on for over an hour, so I'm trying to keep us.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I thought that typically this was voted on. Okay, that's fine.
I can tell you that I spent almost an hour with the mayor of San Bruno today, talking about how we, Millbrae and San Bruno, might work on diversity issues and the different approaches of our cities. And honestly, so proud of our community groups, from ARC to MCC to, I know that we have a group that's from Macau, and they want to bring up the traditions of Macau as they're here and how to keep it within their families. So we are very fortunate in our diversity. So thank you for that, City Attorney. All right, City Attorney, or City Manager, it's in your hands.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council and community. My name is Tom Williams, City Manager here at the City of Millbrae. Just a couple of quick updated items. Speaking of diversity, I'd like to announce that the National League of Cities, not the California League, but actually the National League of Cities, at their annual meeting, recognized and honored the City of Millbrae as a runner-up for the 2021 Cultural Diversity Awards Program. The league, National League, had recognized the city and the efforts of the newly formed Anti-Racist Coalition to promote racial equity and social justice within the city. So this is very significant for a city of our size to be nationally recognized with the Anti-Racist Coalition and a grassroots effort here in the City of Millbrae. So congratulations to that grassroots effort, the city, ARC, and everyone that's been involved. Two things, spring is in the air. We have two events in our recreation department. The first is the Millbrae Recreation Center will be hosting a spring camp. The camp is available to children 6 to 11 years old, and it will take place from April 5th through the 9th. There will be outdoor events and activities from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. each day at Taylor Middle School. Kids can play games and sports, art projects, engage in a variety of activities. And those parents that are interested in registering their children can do so at www.bit.ly/MILREC. Again, that's www.bit.ly/MILREC. Also in the spring, we have a Bunny at the Gazebo event coming up this Saturday, March 27th, beginning at 11 a.m. For an hour and a half, 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. So visitors can drive by, just kind of like Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus, past the gazebo, say hi to the bunny, and get some spring eggs as a treat for all the kids. So that's this Saturday, Library Lane out in front of the gazebo, starting at 11 a.m. through 12:30 p.m. Also, we've had a series, and I think people recognize this, but wanted to make sure that everyone is cautious about online bill paying scams. The City Finance Department received some inquiries from residents regarding a third-party online bill paying platform. The city does not contract with any third-party online bill platform. So if any of the residents or any of our ratepayers are solicited, please know that this is not something that is sanctioned by the City of Millbrae. And you can always contact either myself or the Finance Department to be sure. Also, I just a quick shout out to our Public Works Department and crews. They finished their work early on inspecting and cleaning some of our sewer lines along Highway 101 and the northbound ramp. And just wanted to thank them for being ahead of schedule on that very important project. These are the things that our staff does every day that sometimes residents don't notice, but great job, and a shout out to our public works crews for that. Also, there's the California Rental Assistance Program and a portal that opened up last week. And this is a program through State Housing and Community Development that provides assistance to property owners up to 80% of the past due rents of their tenants that are eligible, as well as those property owners that don't participate. Renters themselves can get up to 25% of back rent. And the website for this program, the rental assistance portal, is housingiskey.com. So all one word, housingiskey.com. And then lastly, and in the spirit of economic development and business promotion here at the City of Millbrae, the Millbrae Pancake House is reopening its doors on April 1st, actually, Thursday, April 1st. So this long time staple business here in the City of Millbrae is back in action. So I just wanted to make that announcement. So Mayor, that concludes the update. Moving on to the agenda. We have our standard reports, bills and claims, calendar of events, approval of meeting minutes for the meeting of October 27th, 2020, as well as December 8th, 2020. There are no oral reports from committee or commission chairs this evening. Then we move into public communication. Grace, if you're out there, and any other member of the public that would like to address the City Council on any item not on the agenda.
I'm sorry, may I go ahead?
The agenda, and then the mayor will call on you.
Okay.
Calendar this evening, we have an
City
authorized
manager, you're cutting out a little bit.
to MCTV for our agreement for broadcasting and video and channel management. Item number 6 is a resolution extending the agreement with Trent Sunahara for professional services for our public information and communications program. Both of these contracts will be extended through the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. Item number 7 is a resolution awarding construction, a contract for construction to Wastewater Solids Management Incorporated for the cleaning project for the Digester 2 out at the sewer treatment plant. Moving on to public hearings, we have one public hearing this evening. That's item number 8, and it's to consider and accept a report for online bill pay that will be rolled out April 1st, as well as a resolution authorizing the city to collect credit card fees if there are any ratepayers that pay their water and sewer bills with a credit card online. Then we have no existing business items. Moving on to new business, we have 2 items. Item number 9 is to accept the fiscal year 2020 mid-year budget report and update. Item 10 is to accept the housing element annual report. This report is actually due to Housing and Community Development at the state by April 1st. Then we move on to City Council comments and adjournment. So that concludes the overview of the agenda this evening, Mayor.
Thank you, City Manager. Okay, moving on to approval of minutes. Any comments on the minutes, or can I have a motion to approve?
Mayor, of note, we did have one change in the city. It was a spelling of a name that Councilmember Holliber brought to our attention, and so that change has been made.
At which, was that October 27th or December 8th?
October 27th, ma'am.
Okay, so one change. Councilwoman Pappen, did you have a comment? Oh, okay. All right, can I have a motion to, Elaine, do we need to approve them separately, or can we approve them together?
You could do them together if you like.
Okay. A motion to approve both the minutes for October 27th and December 8th, 2020.
Move with the addition, the edit. Thank you.
And second by Oliva.
Thank you. Any further comments? All right, Elaine, could you call the vote, please?
Okay. Councilmember Holliber.
Aye.
Councilmember Fung,
Aye.
Councilmember Pappen,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Oliva,
Aye.
Mayor Snyder.
Aye.
Thank you. The council approved the regular meeting minutes of October 27th with corrections and the regular meeting minutes of December 8th, 2020 as presented by the vote of 5-0.
Thank you, City Clerk. And as the city manager said, there are no oral reports from any city committees or commissions. The next item is for public communication. These are for people wishing to comment on an item that is not on the agenda. And just so that the public knows, City Council, because it's not agendized, cannot respond back. So I see Kathleen Kimura. Kathleen, go ahead. Can't hear. Kathleen, I think we need to help her get unmuted.
Okay, there we go. Well, good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Kathleen Kimura, and I've lived in Millbrae now for 43 years. I've seen many positive changes over those years. However, what I have not seen is the long-awaited development of the rundown area on the immediate northeast side of El Camino from Millbrae Avenue. And I was really enthused when I saw an article in the Daily Journal just a couple of weeks ago about that particular area. So I'd like to encourage the council and city manager to move forward as soon as possible with the development of the 3 city-owned parcels near the BART Caltrain station and direct staff to issue a request for proposals immediately to develop this prized location in order to provide urgently needed revenue for Millbrae, for its schools, for public safety services, for infrastructure, etc. This area provides an unprecedented opportunity for high-end development to benefit the city of Millbrae and the broader community for years to come. And I really would like to see it developed in my lifetime. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kimura. And I think we have Ms. Grace.
Thank you. My name is Grace Zerub. While I do not live in the city of Millbrae, I do own property in the Millbrae. That question has been posed to me several times by ARC members on Nextdoor, and I resent that, that I cannot have a voice because I do not live and vote in the city of Millbrae. I want to let you know that I was disappointed to see a Black Lives Matter banner hanging on City Hall for Black History Month, a month that we should learn and rejoice in, has a Black Lives Matter banner on it. At best, Black Lives Matter is a political group, but it has many ties to terrorist organizations and terrorists in general. Black Lives Matter, Millbrae was a group until this summer when they changed their name to Millbrae Anti-Racist Coalition, or ARC. They have the same goals, the same people, and the same agenda. I am deeply disturbed that a Black Lives Matter group is in the city of Millbrae. When I had my efforts to take down the banner, I made some comments on Nextdoor, and I was immediately attacked by ARC members. They stalked me and anybody with the same unique last name, including a teacher that is well respected and has no involvement in this issue. And I find that very offensive and very disturbing and very scary for people, not only myself, but for people with the same last name. And I'm glad to see that Mr. Kelly is on here so he could hear my comments. This group should not be allowed to participate in any event in the city of Millbrae without going through the course of gaining a permit by the process that everybody else has to gain a permit. Last weekend at the Musta Grove, and as a Maltese person that has ties to Musta, I find it deeply offensive that Black Lives Matter put their sign up that says, our mission is to lead the city of Millbrae in creating a socially equitable society. Okay, I'd like you to be aware that equitable is not equality. For example, equitable at Yale University discriminates against Asians Americans because otherwise they would qualify at a rate of 47% of the student body, and Yale finds that offensive. I find it offensive that a group that's spewing anti-Asian hate would actually go for equity, not equality. It behooves the city of Millbrae to educate themselves. I also find it offensive that Gina and Ann are leads on Nextdoor. I find that to be a conflict of interest in the community where community members use Nextdoor to voice their opinion on city issues. Also, farmers do not support immigrants. Cesar Chavez actually had people go to the border to discourage immigrants to this country. It behooves everybody in the city of Millbrae, especially the city council members that come on here and say that Cesar Chavez should be celebrated, to understand that he was not for immigrant workers who undercut the United Farm Workers' salaries.
Mayor, if I may, and I don't mean to be rude, Grace, but we do have a 3-minute time limit, and to be fair to everyone, we have to uphold the 3-minute public time limit. So I apologize.
I understand that, but maybe you could respond.
Thank
to
you,
one of my
City
many
Manager,
emails
and
that
thank
I
you,
sent you.
Ms.
Thank you.
Zareb. Okay. Steve Hom.
I don't know where to begin, but yes, the Millbrae Arc started out with a name called Black Lives Matter Millbrae, but Black Lives Matter nor Millbrae Arc promotes any type of violence, socialism, anti-Asian rhetoric. In fact, I'm not sure where you were attacked, where you feel like you were attacked. I would love to see the evidence of that, because if any of our members did that, which I truly doubt, but if they did, I would love to see it, and I would be happy to chastise them. But I don't know of any incident of this that I could speak to, and I'm not sure where the relationship of socialism and violence and Black Lives Matter all coalesced, because I don't see any evidence of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hom. Any further comments for items not on tonight's agenda? I am not seeing any other hands raised, so closing public communication and moving on to consent calendar. If there are no council members wanting to pull an item off consent calendar, can I have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar?
Make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Fung to second.
Thank you, Councilman Fung. Okay, City Clerk, could you please call the vote?
Councilmember Oliver,
Aye.
Councilmember Fung,
Aye.
Councilmember Pappen,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Oliva,
Aye.
Mayor Snyder.
Aye.
Consent items 5, 6, and 7 is passed unanimously.
Excellent. And I would, again, just like to thank MCTV and Trent Sunahara for all the work you're doing in this year of COVID that has brought in so many changes, for helping us stay connected with our constituents. Thank you. Okay, public hearing. Next on the agenda is opening a public hearing to accept the report regarding online bill pay and third-party processing fees for credit cards, and adopt a resolution amending the city service and fee schedule. With that, going to have staff give the presentation, and then we'll open the public hearing. So staff, if you could please get set up.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce our
Let's open the public hearing right now so that the staff report is part of the public hearing.
Thank you, Joan. You know, I talked to Elaine earlier, and then I talked to Tom telling me how to do this. I'm happy to open the public hearing right now. I'm just getting guidance on 2 different ways. The city clerk says, there we go. I officially
Go ahead,
Gina.
Move that we open the public.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
Ways of doing it, but I prefer to have everything related to the topic in the hearing. Thank you.
And that's how Elaine set me up, but then we had a discussion. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think we should move on, but we can have a discussion on protocol later. Okay, I'd like to introduce Mr. Mike Sung, our finance director, for the staff report.
Thank you, City Manager Williams. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Elaine, could you give me access, please?
Of course, sorry about that. There you
Oh,
go.
thank you.
You are able to share.
Okay. All right. So good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Today we're going to be talking about online bill pay and third-party processing fees. So sorry, looks like we're having technical difficulties. Let me see if I can get this fast forward. Oh, here we go. So first, I'd like to talk about online bill pay. What really started as a bunch of inquiries from ratepayers to allow for payments online as we basically get things online. So we've really looked at this from several different perspectives. And our first attempt at doing this really is on our utility systems through a system called e-utilities. So staff's actually conducted various testings with the financial management system provider back in February and in March. We're looking at sending out communications to the ratepayers through a variety of ways, through emails if a ratepayer has left an email contact, postcard with the web address for e-utilities, and insert in the bi-monthly bill, as well as social media and flyers. E-utilities, which is the city version of how you can make bill payments online, is anticipated to be available on April 1, 2021. We do see several advantages of this, which include having ratepayers be able to go online to the city website and officially only through the city website, create an account, pay their water and sewer bills online, as well as enroll in paperless e-bill. So, you know, I would completely recommend enrolling in paperless e-bill, save a tree. So ratepayers will also be able to check account status and activity. They'll also be able to pay with credit, debit, or automatic clearinghouse or ACH. Customers that actually have multiple properties can also link those multiple properties into one account for administrative ease. And this will also allow ratepayers to save time, help avoid late fees, as customers are going to have 24/7 access to the online portal. For now, we're really looking at the e-utilities portion for water and sewer. Eventually, we're going to look at other payments such as permits or business licenses and perhaps even TOT. So the second piece that I wanted to talk about is third-party processing fees. Underneath California Government Code 6159, it actually permits cities to impose a fee for the use of a credit or debit card or electronic funds transfer not to exceed the costs incurred by the agency or agent in providing for payment by credit or debit card or electronic funds transfer. So a little history behind that is that all merchant service providers, or MSPs, they charge these transactional and interchange fees for any related payments for credit, debit, or charge cards. Charging a processing fee will allow the city to basically offset those fees. What we're basically looking to do is to remain neutral on this and to have an estimated 2.1% based on any credit card charges. And how this was actually calculated is this was the actual rate of fees that we've paid back in 2020 from January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020. We also recommend that we charge this fee effective April 1, 2021, and that we continuously review and align the average charge from the MSPs annually. What this means is if the fee goes up or down, we'd adjust the fee based off of the last calendar year, and we would adjust this every April 1st. So in summary, staff recommends that the City Council receive the report regarding the launch of the online e-utility bill pay site, hold a public hearing, and adopt a resolution amending the city fee schedule to include the processing fee for credit, debit, and charge cards effective April 1. With that, I'm open for any questions.
Okay. Council members, I don't see any council members' hands. Any comments, questions from council? Okay, opening up. Councilman Holober.
Just a quick question. So the 2.1%, is there a particular company that the city works with? Or are there multiple companies? How exactly does that work?
There's actually a couple of different companies. The main company that we work with is, I believe it's BridgePay, and that's through the e-utilities site, and that's why the rate has been relatively low. If you actually look at how much other government entities charge, they usually vary between 2.2 to possibly almost 3%, depending on what the entity is. If you actually go on to like the county websites, you can see that you can pay the county property tax bill, or you can go onto the DMV sites. They all charge a particular fee just to kind of recover and recoup what the merchant service providers pay. So working directly with the company that helps minister e-utility allows us to have a lower charge.
Okay, but I mean, would it make sense to maybe find whatever company has the lowest fee and say that's the company that we're going to use, and or does it depend on which company e-utility system uses?
Generally speaking, there's an additional cost that's associated if you want to link things to a different company. We did take a look at several other companies. This was pretty much the lowest rate that we've seen. So if we were to go somewhere else, we'd actually have to have implementation fees and have that we basically have to try to link the system outside of our Tyler New World system.
Okay. And then just one other comment. I don't know if it would make sense for future years to have the fee adjusted July 1 to coincide with the fiscal year. I don't know if that's how other fees on our fee schedule, I think, are updated every July 1. Would that make sense to be consistent in future years?
That is definitely a possibility. We were just using April 1 as kind of a date right now, but we could align it with July 1 with the other fee schedules as well.
Well, Kenzie, if I jump in here, so we wanted to launch our online bill pay April 1st. And so this obviously coincides with people's ability to use a credit card to pay their bills. And so we will align, this annual resolution with our budget resolutions, most certainly.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Pappen, your hand was up, but it's down. Okay, open this up for comments from the public. Just giving them a few seconds. I am not seeing hands raised. All right, with that, motion to close the public hearing portion. If I could have a motion to close.
Move to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Was that Councilman Holober?
Yes. Second.
Thank you. Okay, Elaine, if you could please call the vote.
Councilmember Holober.
Aye.
Councilmember Fung.
Aye.
You cut a little bit out there, Elaine.
Oh, Councilmember Pappen.
Aye.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Leva.
Aye.
Mayor Snyder.
Aye.
Public hearing is closed.
So I have one comment, and then council members, if you have a couple of comments. Back to what Oliver said in terms of using the lowest price, do we also look at their security precautions as one of the criteria when we're talking about people's billing information and we don't want to be hacked? So I assume that that's one thing we look at.
That's usually included with the contracts that we have with them. So they're pretty standard across the board.
Okay. And when I read, really well done, by the way, the automatic clearinghouse, I know that that's what we use. We have direct deduction from our checking account. But what can we do for people that do not have checking accounts? And I think this is an equity issue. Not everyone banks or trusts the banking system. So what are their options? And what can we do to make sure that our public knows that they can avoid any fees if they go to the automatic clearinghouse option?
You can also still continue to pay with cash, or you can actually pay with a check. If you don't have a checking account, you won't be able to pay with a check, but you can actually continue to pay with cash. We actually highly encourage people to go through the automatic clearinghouse, the ACH. It's kind of one and done. You basically sign up. There's no additional fees that are charged for the ACH. The 2.1% is actually charged only on credit, debit, and charge cards, effective April 1, 2021. For the ACHs, there won't be any additional charge. And with an ACH, once you have it set up, it just automatically pulls the amount from your banking account. I would still highly encourage everybody to continue to monitor and check their bills just in case there's like a leak in your water and sewer bill. But with an ACH, it's just administratively easier. And then once you sign up, you don't have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah, that's how we do it in our house, and it's a great weight off of one's to-do list. Do we put that information into Mandarin or Cantonese or Spanish?
Staff can look into that.
Okay, let's just make sure that we're reaching out to our entire population there. With that, any further comments from council?
If I may make a couple comments, Madam Mayor?
Certainly, Councilman.
Yes, thank you. Well done, by the way, to staff. This is, definitely a big step in the right direction. Having the ability to let our residents to pay all their utilities as well, even including future taxes, TOTs and the like online. It makes it so much easier and reduce the staff workload and increase efficiencies. Any idea in terms of the future payment portal or capability where we can email our residents their water bill, for example, so that they can get them in their mailbox and electronic formats and just have them schedule their payment 20 days or 15 days after receiving the bills, that sort of thing. That kind of capability would continue and further help streamline these efforts and making it more efficiency.
So Councilmember Fung, what we're really looking at here is for the other types of payments like the TOT and for permitting, once we get e-utility up and running and we've had a chance to have that work for everyone, we'll be exploring those options to basically allow people to pay other types of bills, such as business license, such as permits. So that would be somewhere down in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as emailing bills and that type of information, we will look into that, and there should be some capabilities so that we can basically save a lot more trees.
Exactly.
So we're definitely looking at that. We need people to actually sign up online and give us their email address, though. That's actually very important.
Great, but definitely, a big step in the right direction. Well done. Thank you very much.
If no further comments, can we have a motion to adopt the resolution amending city service and fee schedule?
So moved.
Approval.
I think Mr. Fung beat you, and then Mr. Holober.
Second.
Thank you. City Clerk, could you please call the vote?
Councilmember Holliver,
Aye.
Councilmember Fung, Councilmember Fung.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Pappen,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Leva,
Aye.
Mayor Snyder.
Aye.
The council accept the report regarding online bill pay and third-party processing fees for credit cards and adopted resolution amending city service and fee schedule.
Excellent. Thank you.
5-0. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And I know that this was a big request from the public. Well done, staff, in moving us forward. Thank you so much. We have no existing business. So next up is to accept the fiscal year 2021 mid-year budget report and adopt a resolution amending the 2020-2021 adopted budget. And
thank you, Mayor. I'd like to again introduce Mr. Mike Sung, our Finance Director, for the presentation.
Okay, let's try to get this PowerPoint up. Just 1 second, please.
No worries. Does Elaine have it up? Can she help you?
I do have it. Would you like me to share?
I think I got it up, Elaine.
Okay.
Do we see
There
it?
we go.
All right.
You don't have it on full screen, but if it's working, let's keep moving.
Is that better?
A little bit. Your slides are always easy to read.
All right. Let's see. Okay. Oh, it's showing now. All right. Let's talk about the mid-year. So for the mid-year, this year's been a very challenging year based off of the pandemic that we're currently under. We are seeing a little bit of light in the tunnel. But I do want to preface that we basically looked at revenues and expenditures. And today I'm going to be mainly talking about the general fund revenues and expenditures and all of the effects that we're kind of seeing right now. So the major thing that we're really seeing is that we're actually recommending several adjustments. The big one is for transient occupancy tax, which is a $2.5 million reduction. The pandemic has affected the hotels and motels in a more drastic fashion that we had originally anticipated. I believe part of that actually has to do with the resurgence of COVID back at the end of November, sometime right after Thanksgiving, all the way through January, where people were only allowed to basically travel in California for essential items. So instead of being at about 4.7 to 4.8 million, we're thinking it's actually going to be a lot less, maybe about 2.2 to 2.3 million. On the bright side, for sales tax, we're actually seeing a little bit of an increase, and that is partially attributable to it being a little bit more resilient. People have gotten more accustomed to going out and dining. People have gotten more accustomed to getting food to go, and there's more online sales, which continues to grow as well. Other reductions that we're currently looking at include parking tax, which really it kind of mirrors transient occupancy tax. There's a pretty drastic reduction in that. Fines and forfeitures as well. With the pandemic, there's a lot more people telecommuting, so there's a lot less people driving. So most of the reductions actually in the fines for red lights. Property tax is generally not affected by it, so it's pretty much tracking on target, as well as fees for services. Do you want to denote that for use of money in property, that actually includes rent, which we do get rent for like the 101E sign, and then there is a pretty drastic reduction in that. There's a couple $100,000 reduction for that. As we receive two different types of revenue from there. There's base monthly revenue, and then there's a revenue share that we receive. And the revenue share has been greatly decreased because of the reduction in traffic that's been going across 101. One really bright spot that we've seen is the additional stimulus funding from the federal government. Back on March 11th, the American Rescue Plan Act was enacted, and what we're looking at is an estimated $4.2 million that's going to come to Millbrae. Half of that's going to come in this fiscal year, 2021, so $2.1 million will come in here. And then another 2.1 million scheduled for fiscal year 21-22. Now, part of this is also to offset some of the revenue reductions. We're really looking at expenditure reductions as well. And the good news with that is a combination of both the Sheriff's Office unfunded accrued liability offset for CalPERS, as well as vacancy savings, and us prepaying the CalPERS UAL amount has totaled about $1.5 million in savings, which is quite significant. So just to kind of show visibly what it looks like, you'll see that for sales tax, for example, you can see that we're really estimating it to be a little bit higher. But the big
Mayor, if I may, real quick, Mike, do you want to go into a little bit of detail? I just want to make note for the council and the public that reduction in public safety is not a reduction in service or a contract amendment. It was an overpayment by the city of Millbrae.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, City Manager Williams. So it is not a reduction in service, as City Manager Williams had mentioned. Basically, we had an overpayment of retirement funds, and the Sheriff's Office has credited us for that. So that's been really beneficial for our general fund savings.
Thank you, Finance Director Sung. I really appreciate your staff reports. They are so clear and so easy to read, so I compliment you on that. Council comments. Councilwoman Pappen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you please, yeah, the reports are nice, but I don't want anybody reading this report and getting the wrong idea about public safety. Can you add a footnote or something? Because sometimes the press doesn't really watch through all this, and they might see that thinking that we're cutting back on public safety. So that would be a very big error, and we take public safety very, very seriously here. Question, and thank you for your maneuvering and working through this critical and unforeseen circumstance. Where are we on existing contracts related to not only sewer and water, but street repairs and all of that? Because we've still got some very crumbling streets, and I believe you have existing contracts. So what is happening in that realm?
I think I can answer.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike, and then I'll follow up.
I would like to add that we are reviewing the contracts right now with what we have. And as we're going through the budget process, we're actually looking at every single contract through all of our line items just to see what's actually in there, what's necessary, what type of escalators are programmed in for the multi-year contracts that we have. So we're going through scrutinizing most of the contracts and making sure that these are indeed what we have and need and are necessary.
Okay, I would like to reiterate, we have some really, really bad streets that have been put off for a very, very long time. based on the sewer and water. We've told the residents we're trying to do everything all at once. And yet it probably would be helpful to the public to know where we are going to focus our limited funds at this point in time. So if we could let the residents know that, so that they don't once again have to wait years for repairs, that would be helpful.
Well, I do believe that we should be really realistic and have an honest conversation when we're looking at this. We don't get enough funding from the state, like for gas tax. Our PCI index is in the 50s, and just to maintain it, we need about $2.9 to $3 million to maintain that. And we're getting about $1 million in just gas tax. The rest of it, we have to kind of get together some grants. And if we are fortunate enough, we can use some of the general fund money for that. But it's just to maintain that, it's pretty difficult. So you'll want to take a look at that. I mean, if Key's here, Public Works Director, he can probably explain a little bit more about that.
Well, I think there's additional STIP money and some other money that's coming down that we want to be aware of. It's not a lot because we're a small city, but let's use CCAG and MTC and all those. There are some funds that are coming down. You just want to make sure we're on top of whatever we can get and are entitled to there, so we can, for the public's sake, you know, if we don't do things as soon as we can, the prices just keep going up. So if we can make some improvements while this is still going on, that would be helpful to the overall budget. But thank you. I do appreciate all your work in this realm.
Thank you, Councilwoman. City Manager, did you want to comment? Did you have a comment?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
I would only encourage us, and I'm sure you're doing it, that if we're following what's happening at the federal level and the infrastructure bill and the FAST Act legislation, that includes something that just amazes me, that small cities have to go through more hoops than big cities. It's called the Surface Transportation Block Grant. Cities over $50,000 get a direct payment should the FAST Act get approved, or other previous transportation funds. They get that money directly. And for the public, for cities under 50,000, the money either goes to the state of California and then goes to the county, and then it is given in a competitive process to the cities within the county. And right now we have asked our supervisor, Dave Pine's office, to look at both community development block grant money, surface transportation block grant, and any of these other block grants that only go to small cities in a form of competition of where that money is going and can we get to some of that money. But I also hope that both Public Works and the Finance Department are keeping are getting ready to apply for those grants through the FAST Act, or through, we've got until April 12th, I believe, to get requests to Congresswoman Spear on that. And I'm not sure if the road repair, I know it's been on next door the last couple days again, and trying to do the pipes underneath before we repair the roads seems like a great project to put on Congresswoman Spear's list. But the clock is ticking. I think it's less than 2 weeks, or maybe 2.5 weeks to get that done. Okay, any further comments? Anyway, thank you for keeping us moving forward, and you will come back to us soon with the CIP budget. Am I using the right term? And with the special funds budgets. Will that be part of our budget process coming up?
Go ahead.
Sorry, Mike. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. Thanks, City Manager Williams. We'll be looking at the CIP and special funds when we look at the proposed budget. We'll have a little bit more in-depth information at that time.
Excellent. So again, I agree with Councilwoman Pappen. It's been a while since we've done a staff report that talks about street repairs. You know, we finished Larkspur, but maybe staff can start looking at what's next, and we start notifying the community of that, because that was good news. COVID has, of course, ended that good news. but if we can keep moving forward. If there's no further comments, can I have a motion and a second to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, that sounded like Vice Mayor Oliva and Councilman Fung. And the motion is to accept the fiscal year 2021 mid-year budget report and adopt a resolution amending the 2021 adopted budget. Elaine, could you please call the vote?
Happy to. Councilmember Oliver,
Aye.
Councilmember Fung,
Aye.
Councilmember Pappen,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Oliva,
Aye.
Mayor Snyder.
Aye.
The City Council accepted the fiscal year 2020 to 2021 mid-year budget report and adopted the resolution amending the 2020 and 2021 adopted budget by the vote of 5-0.
Thank you. And now last up is accept the housing element annual progress report for 2020 and authorize the transmittal to the California Department of Housing and Community Development and the Governor's Office of Planning and Research. This is an action item. So staff, if you could give us your presentation, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce Ms. Darcy Smith, our Community Development Director, for the presentation.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. This will be a joint presentation. I'm Darcy Smith, your Community Development Director, and assisting me tonight with the presentation is Ms. Elisa Tierney, the city's Economic Development and Housing Manager. She will be taking the first part of the presentation, which is up on the screen and looks great, and then I'll be picking up midway through. So, Ms. Tierney, are you ready to make the presentation? That looked good. Do you want to restart it?
Here. Sorry, I couldn't find the unmute button. Sorry, let me go back and let's get going. Okay.
That looks great.
Elisa
Thanks.
Tierney, housing manager for the city. Sorry about that, folks. Okay, as Community Development Director Smith already said, tonight's action is for you to consider accepting by motion the housing element progress report for the 2020 year and authorize its transmittal to the state HCD and the Governor's Office of Planning and Research. And now, let's see. Okay, so the point of this, as you know, the housing element is a major undertaking and is a major document for the city. And in it, among other things, are policies and programs that the city is responsible to undertake throughout the term of the housing element, which is this current one runs from 2015 to 2022. And so the purpose of the annual progress report, also known as the APR, is to review the city's status and its progress on those implementing programs and policies, just to make sure that the city is tracking and doing what it said it would. It also, especially recently, this has become a lot more popular, a lot more significant and higher profile, is it provides a snapshot of the current status of the city with respect to new housing development and specifically affordable housing, and therefore the city's progress towards meeting the regional housing needs allocation, or RHNA numbers that you hear so much about. So the city, it's also an opportunity for the city to accept any comments from the public about the housing element, the progress it's made, about RHNA numbers, et cetera. And I think as our city manager pointed out earlier, it is due April 1st of each year. So the report has 9 tables in it, Excel tables, and it has various other summarizing information as well and narrative. And it's important to note that the state does this, and each jurisdiction or municipality is responsible for doing one of these annual progress reports. And so the state ends up with 500 of them, or 400 and something and change each year. And so a lot of these tables are not directly applicable to us, but are to other jurisdictions. And so these tables on this overview page are the meat of the report. Table A and Table A2 are the two that focus in on residential development. And as it starts out and as an application comes in the door and is deemed complete, so that information would be new projects on Table A. And then on Table A2 is any project that in 2020 was entitled, got its building permit, or a certificate of occupancy, or a finalized building permit. And then Table B summarizes new permitted residential units by the affordability levels and provides an overview of progress in terms of meeting the RHNA numbers. And you'll see this later on in the chart. In addition, here we go. Here are some of the tables that are not applicable. So what I did is I just running through the tables, but bolded the ones that are applicable to us. So Table C identifies rezoned sites to accommodate housing shortfall, not applicable to us. Table D provides a narrative update on the progress made on our implementation programs. And you'll see there's a narrative in the report that goes through them. Table E, again, is not applicable to us, but deals with projects that got density bonuses. Table F and Table G, again, not applicable to us, discuss rehabbed or acquired new units and identifies locally owned land listed in the housing element sites inventory that has changed hands. Table H provides information on any lands declared surplus, and that is bolded because, in fact, you all declared two properties that the city owned surplus, I think 2 years ago. And as you're well aware, we're in the process of trying to sell one of them now. So those two sites made it onto the report. And I'm going to turn it back over to Darcy now.
Hi, Darcy Smith, the Community Development Director. I want to focus the bulk of tonight's presentation on this table, and it's complicated, so I'll step through it slowly. It was also included in the staff report, but it just speaks to the complexity of this reporting mechanism. So on the left, you'll see the income levels, and those are set by HUD and then defined at the county level. And these, for the first three categories, very low, low, and moderate, they must be deed restricted units. So when we look at these numbers, there is a complex deed recordation process that these units have to go through in order to count, with the exception of accessory dwelling units, which are distributed throughout. That's why without that legal mechanism, which is usually for 45 years, 55 years or longer, all the other units are thrown into the above moderate category. So in the second column, you'll see our regional housing needs, or RHNA, targets for the current housing element cycle, which started in 2015 and spans through the end of 2022. And as you know, we're already working on the first housing element, or the next housing element, and we have our new RHNA numbers, which have substantially increased to 2,199 units. So we will continue to have a lot of conversations about these numbers and how to plan for them in the next year and a half as we finalize our current our housing element. So in the first 3 years of the RHNA cycle, frankly, we didn't see a lot of construction. So in those 3 years, I've summarized them together, and you'll see that there were 3 units that had building permits issued. In 2019, we increased a little bit to 18, but I want to pat everyone on the back And that includes all the city staff, including our very hardworking team in the building division, for reviewing and issuing permits for 328 units last year. That was the highest number by far in this reporting period. And we also were very fortunate that we were able to get 20 moderate deed restricted units at the Gateway TOD2 project, and then 2 additional moderate units, which were accessory dwelling units, which I mentioned were distributed throughout. So that was a very successful year, and that brings our total permitted units for the RHNA cycle to 349. But I also want to point out that the city has a very strong history of approving residential development projects. So that we would be remiss if we did not inform the council and the community that the total approved and permitted units through the report publication date of last week is 928. That exceeds the RHNA numbers, but all we report on for the purposes of this table and the state annual progress report is permitted units. But I want to give you, the full picture of units that have gone through the full entitlement process and are not having issued permits, not because of the city's role, but just because sometimes, especially with the pandemic and outside regional forces, they don't proceed through the building permit process swiftly. But I just want you to be aware that we have a lot in the pipeline, and that total is 928 units. However, if you move to the second to last column, you'll see that the total RHNA units, our reportable units, is 296. So if you do math well, you might wonder, wait, why is that lower than 349? And I can see the confusion some folks' faces. And the reality is that then if you track back to the horizontal columns, we are capped in the number of units that we can report in each individual income category. So if you follow the first column, our RHNA numbers, you'll see that our above moderate RHNA goal was 257 units. So even though we exceeded that number, and we've issued a total of 310 housing unit permits, we can only count 257. And that's why you might think, oh, the city staff, they cannot do math. Really? We can. We just report a different number for the state. And I want to emphasize, what does the state do with this? Well, it's up on the HCD website. It uses it for the application of various state laws. However, we are not fined, and it doesn't count towards other sources of revenue, such as gas tax, which are calculated per capita, or our population, which the Department of Finance calculates every year based on a different report that we work hard to submit to them. But you'll just see here what the state prioritizes. And I want to again pause here and emphasize that in the very low income category, we do have a pretty high remaining number of 186. In the low category, we have 95. So I do want you to be aware that the city staff and you will be working very hard on identifying new mechanisms and new tools in our toolkit to increase the city's ability to plan for those units. And the most important thing that will be coming to you very soon, in about a month, is the on-site inclusionary ordinance. So I just want to again plant the policy lens here and make it broad enough so that when we come back and have these discussions, especially on the new housing element update, that you're kind of aware of some of the nuts and bolts of these RHNA calculations. And I again want to point out that the city has a really strong history of approving residential projects, such as the 928 unit total that you see here. We've also done a good job of requiring affordable units, such as at TOD1 and TOD2. TOD2 has affordability levels of 25% in total, but we will be broadening our ability to require on-site affordable units citywide at different income levels. You'll hear us talk in the future about the very low, low, and moderate income categories and how to achieve those targets. And again, the city doesn't build housing themselves. We rely on the private market to pursue these construction. And I will emphasize that during the pandemic, construction was stopped, and we're fortunate that we've seen strong interest and have projects proceeded through it. So next slide.
Hey, Darcy, real quick, if I may here, jump in. Can you go back to the previous table?
Yep.
And do you want to just quickly highlight where the core
Oh, man.
units are associated and how that's going to change our numbers?
Yeah, that's actually on the next slide.
Okay, I apologize.
Yeah, so I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the core unit, core project. Yeah, right here. Yeah. So as I mentioned, we've issued permits last year, 2020, for 328 new housing units, included 20 moderate income affordable units. Again, those were deed restricted and required as part of the development agreement for that project. I mentioned that we've had some accessory dwelling units completed. We had 3 completed last year. But substantial progress was made towards the issuance of building permits for the 100% affordable 80-unit veterans preference building at the Gateway. You might remember that you played a significant role in the awarding of the $2.88 million city contribution for that project. And that sort of tees up another policy initiative the city will be considering, is building up our affordable housing fund through new in lieu and impact fees. So we will be bringing those fees, which, you know, ultimately these projects, as you heard at the meeting previously on this core project, require piecing together of complexity of different federal, state, and local funding sources. And cities often are asked to contribute funds, such as you saw with the 2.88 million, towards this affordable housing. The financing structures you heard from Mr. Chris Neal that night is very, very complex. It's a web of financing, and this city's affordable housing fund and our ability to build it back up, because we've depleted it quite a bit, is really critical towards the construction of very low income units. But the Gateway building, we're optimistic we'll be issuing that building permit in the next few weeks when the loan closes, but that will result in 24 new very low income units and 55 low income units, and then 1 moderate income unit that's for the on-site manager. And again, those are all deed restricted, and they will be provided for priority for qualified U.S. Armed Forces veterans. And I also want to point out, we have a lot in the pipeline here. So I mentioned the staff report, some of the projects that have been submitted or we anticipate submittal soon. We have 534 new housing units in the pipeline. That's in addition to the 928 first, so we're well over 1,000. And for those projects, we have a range of units too. We have 22 very low and 60 low. And then the remainder is the market rate units. And for the projects that are likely to be submitted soon, there would also be about 27 low-income units. So we're in really, in closing, I'll say we're in really, really good shape at the low-income level, but the very low, where we have 186 units in our RENA needs still remaining, those are really tough to get. And again, they require a deep, deep subsidy or requirements on site. So again, we'll revisit this in about a month when we talk about inclusionary zoning and the on-site requirements when we go through and I step through the policy considerations for those units. Next slide. So we did a lot else to implement the housing element. I think as you learn more about the housing element, you'll just see how wide-ranging it is. I spent the bulk covering new housing construction, but there's a lot in the housing element that goes into existing housing and then the provision to support other items related to housing. So there is a program that we achieved implementation of in 2020 related to energy conservation. And you might recall that you adopted the new building reach codes. So that ensures that there's better sources of electricity that are more sustainable for buildings and adequate electric vehicle infrastructure, for example, through those reach codes. I heard you talk earlier about repaving streets, and I'm happy to report that as part of an implementation measure for the housing element, the city repaved a principal arterial street, and we also replaced over 1 mile of sanitary sewer, which is really important for a house, you know, when you need your sanitary sewer needs met. And this Public Works Department also completed a recycled water feasibility study. And We've also implemented the specific plan. You approved an amendment to the plan, but the city building division was also very busy issuing the building permits for the new retail, office, and hotel space, in addition to the 120 units of housing that I mentioned were permitted. So next slide. And last, the council should be again applauded for the new ADU ordinance that they adopted. That's the accessory dwelling unit ordinance, which went through a robust community engagement process that was in response to multiple new housing laws that were adopted at the state level. And that ordinance includes objective design standards to help with neighborhood compatibility. And we are seeing an increase in the applications. It's not dramatic, but I think as we consider more housing options, people will see the value of ADUs in certain locations. And last, the city, and especially Ms. Tierney, participate in a number of ongoing housing related programs. So every week we get calls wanting some sort of assistance from the housing related to rental housing. We've also assisted during the pandemic in pushing out information about eviction awareness related to our eviction ordinances. We participate in home sharing through HIP housing, which I think as a result of us coming out of the pandemic will regain popularity. And we also are involved in the resales and rental controls related to our existing affordable housing units. And we do have many that were provided over the years in various locations in the city. And next slide. So in conclusion, we recommend that you accept by motion the Housing Element Annual Progress Report for 2020 and authorize transmittal to the California Department of Housing and Community Development and the Governor's Office of Planning and Research. And this concludes our staff report. And myself, Ms. Tierney, City Manager Williams, and the City Attorney are available to answer any questions you might have.
Mayor, you're on.
All right, thank you. Thank you. I was in the not unmute hold. Thank you, Ms. Tierney and Ms. Smith. Thank you very much. Council members, I see Vice Mayor Oliva. Please go ahead.
So I just had a couple questions. First of all, great report, and thanks, like you said, thanks to staff for putting getting us with these numbers so quickly through. Lisa, is there numbers that get like half points, or is everything one full point for the RHNA numbers?
Yeah, I don't, did you address the question to me? Well, I'll just answer it anyway. Yes.
Well, yes.
No, every unit is a full 1 point. I wish it were the case that we got partial credit for something we did, but that's not the case. The one variation on that is because of the work of the jurisdictions in San Mateo County working together, and a discussion around ADUs. The state has acknowledged that we are allowed to prorate ADUs and put 25% of them, and I think Development Director Smith alluded to this earlier, that rather than require them to be deed restricted, they're now, as they're built, 25% automatically go into very low, 25% go into low, 25% moderate, and so forth. So that's the only other case where it's still 1-to-1, but the HCD allowed a variation, if you will.
So the reason why I ask, at least, is I sit on the HART board for the city of Millbrae, and I know when you do the rehabs. So if we were to get an apartment building in Millbrae and to deed it for low income housing or something like that, those would count as full points towards low income housing?
They do, because they are coming online as affordable when they haven't been prior to that. And so
Okay.
that's a case where it might be that without it just so happened that a landlord was renting or offering a unit at a fairly low rent, but if it wasn't deed restricted, it wasn't counted as such. And so if we came in and preserved units and as Development Director Smith was saying before, required 45-year, 55-year limit, they then become restricted units and they are fully counted.
So preservation is so important because like what happens, you know, on a daily basis in the world I live on in my day job, you know, that they get turned over, and if they're fixer-uppers, Anders, you can relate to what I'm saying. They're fixer-uppers, and we lose that income for low income because they've got fixed up and they're renovated and they turn them over. So the preservation, which is what I know that Hart is trying to figure out how we can, well, we put together some good financing that's to be like on the horizon, where if anybody had an actual apartment or something that we could fix them up, but deed them for affordable housing, because Hart would do financing and such. That would be so great for us because it's so much cheaper than new construction. So we're working on that with the Hart board. But my other question is this cycle, Darcy talked about the cycle of the RENA numbers. What is the cycle? So when do we anticipate these numbers? Are they going to up the ante on us, or do we have any idea when this new cycle of figures is going to hit us?
Does City Manager want to take that, or do you want to tee it off to one of us?
Well, I mean, yeah, they are going to up the ante, as Community Development Director mentioned, but I'll let her go ahead and give you the details.
So in the Friday update reports, Ms. Tierney and I have been pushing out a lot of information about the RENA numbers as they have been finalized, or the draft has been finalized from the MTCA-BEG board and are moving to the state HCD for review. And as I mentioned on this presentation, we're looking at about 2,199 units. And the very first coordinated meeting with the 21 elements will be on March 30th. So I would encourage all of you to attend that meeting. And then there'll be a separate meeting on April 22nd, just to talk about all things RENA. But we won't hear from the state for, I think, a few more months, whether they have been accepted by the state. But in utilizing Plan Bay Area 2050, the MTCA-BEG group put together a very robust methodology proposal that was ultimately accepted.
Is that additional, Darcy, or is that total from the 937 or whatever we're at to?
It's a new number that will start in 2023, and then we have 8 years to show progress in meeting that number.
So I hope Bart is listening to this, and I hope Caltrans, and I hope all of our transportation authorities are listening, because I mean, we're running out of airspace even. We need transportation. We need transportation to help us get housing outside maybe this area. That was a great report, guys. Thank you very much.
Just Mayor, if I may, a couple of things on that. I'm sure some of the other council members may want to chime in here, but I think Councilmember Holliber has asked this question in past years, which is if we exceed our RENA numbers, which we already have, and we still have in this cycle to 2023, 2 more years, we do not get credit. So there's no retroactive credit. So when that start date starts in 2023 for the 2,200 units, even though we've exceeded our RENA numbers in this cycle, we won't get the credit. So it starts new again. It's like zero-based budgeting. And in terms of the transportation agencies, I think you're right, Vice Mayor. If they can just get out of our way so we can actually build approved housing units, we'd even, exceed our numbers that we presented today.
We'll be ready for those new ones.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Mayor and City Manager. Councilman Holliber.
Yes, thank you for all of the work that went into this, and it's a very tedious report. It's great to see the 320 units for the Gateway project included in this, and it sounds like shortly the 80 units, all below market rate, will be granted a building permit and included in next year's report. Hopefully the 444 units we've approved at the Sarah Station will be in that report as well. But there's obviously factors outside of our control in some of these other projects as well. One question I had on table D that lists the various programs. Can we include something in that? I know it hasn't been approved yet, but something in that about the inclusionary housing ordinance and commercial linkage fee, because I know the work that we've been doing to prepare those have been ongoing throughout the past year.
I'll take that.
And they do, and they were mentioned in our housing element. We were supposed to have a inclusionary housing ordinance by 2016. For whatever reason, it didn't happen, but I'm glad to see it coming up shortly.
Correct. Great. Yes. Better late than never, as they say. So we didn't report on that for 2020 because we didn't achieve a critical milestone, such as having a city council study session or publishing, an official document. But as I mentioned earlier, we are getting very ready to bringing it to you in a month, and that will be a comprehensive package that would include the on-site inclusionary ordinance, the in lieu affordable fees, and, as you mentioned, the commercial linkage fee, which would apply to office, retail, and hotel uses. So commercial uses in a broad range. And that will be a comprehensive package rather than isolating individual pieces. So it has taken a little bit more work to get the 2 nexus studies done and the 2 ordinances written and the 2 fee resolutions. So be prepared to read, over 100 pages of documents when it finally lands at you with a study session. But I want to point out that we haven't lost a lot of units, in part because the Millbrae Stationary Specific Plan, where we see the bulk of our development, already has a 15% inclusionary goal in that stationary plan, and through development agreements such as for TOD2 and the city contributing, for example, 2.88 million, we have been able to achieve 25% on-site inclusionary at TOD2. And I think now, though, is a pivotal time as we see an increasing growth outside the MSASP area to ensure that we achieve high numbers of inclusionary units. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention that, as I mentioned in the staff report, we are seeing high numbers as a result of applicants seeking density bonuses. So we got a notice of intent to file a new application that's at the 50% affordability level at the low income. So that's 60 units. So we're going to see, I think, other tools, and these are at the state level, resulting in inclusionary units. But we will bring a very robust policy package to you soon. And I just wanted you to prepare yourselves to look at, this wide breadth of policy considerations that relate directly back to this work on the housing element.
Great. Well, thank you very much for that. I very much look forward to seeing that ordinance and that package come forward. I know it was great work of the council to get the Gateway project to increase its inclusionary component from 80 units up to 100 units, from 20% up to 25%. I'm very intrigued by this project with 60 units, 50% affordable. I would love to hear more about that. But it is discouraging seeing some of these other developments that are only proposing 5 to 10% affordable. So I think it'll be important that we set, a standard that all developers will be required to meet in the near future. So thank you.
Thank you. And I think the councilman is being very modest. It is because of Councilman Holliber that we got the extra 20 units. So all credit where credit is due on that. We've got a couple public members, but first, Mr. Chan and Mr. Lowe, if Councilwoman Pappen could go, and then we'll move to public comment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Darcy, Elisa, fabulous job. Thank you so much. This is a very difficult arena. And I think we need to point out, Millbrae is only 3.2 square miles. We're doing the best we can here. Vice Mayor Oliva mentioned HEART, which is the Housing Endowment and Regional Trust that we partake in to help fund some of the affordable units. Just to back up here, when we mention the transit agencies, so the public knows that BART is giving us a hard time on the other side of the station, as is High Speed Rail and a few others that are basically delaying housing projects that we have already approved. So in the housing community out there, we're going to need your support in fighting these transit agencies who are delaying our building further housing. And to point out, there are some jurisdictions which have a housing jobs imbalance. We are not one of those. We are highly housing and the jobs are very low here. So at the same time we're doing all of this, we are also trying to maintain an economic sustainability for the city. So you will read articles by PR firms to try to say the city's delaying things. We are not. We are trying to maintain a sustainable city and move forward. We encourage development in the city of Millbrae as long as it's the right development and everybody pays their fair share. So these are amazing things. I do hope we can get all of our initiatives or ordinance together so no projects sneak in under the radar and do not have to accommodate the housing elements that we are required to do. So I really thank you, ladies, for all you're doing here, and we look forward to this moving forward here. As to the ADUs, you said we had some community outreach. Can we continue that promotion so we can get some more going within the city? I know that would help somewhat. And I have run into other cities as well, as Vice Mayor Oliva suggested, distressed properties, just redetermining them. I'm not sure we have any in Millbrae. I will point out that the property right across the street from the Pancake House, which is going to open again very soon, just another plug for our businesses, was and is an affordable housing structure that we did years ago, and that is still active. So Millbrae is, I think, trying to set a good example here and moving forward and really keeping a balance with everything and keeping the city strong. So thank you again, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Before I open it up for public comment, a couple of questions. I believe that we are keeping an eye on ADUs that might be being used for short-term rental. Of course, with COVID, all of that might have stopped. I don't know if there's a place for that. I'm not sure that up in Sacramento that they reflect on cities that are near transportation hubs and have that additional pressure to become short-term rentals. I don't know if that fits in the report or not, but I believe we're keeping track on that. And then I was really glad to see HIP housing in the PowerPoint presentation. My guess is that the state of California does not allow us to count HIP housing partnerships, or I'm not sure what the right term is, when we can match people in their homes. If we get to count that as affordable housing, I would hope in our cover. So yeah, I'm watching you, Darcy, so I see your head shaking no. Bummer on that. But in our cover letter that goes with the staff report, can we mention these additional projects? HIP housing may not exist throughout the state, and up in Sacramento, they may be unaware of these additional programs that we do that, and we should point out how really great that program is at keeping our older population in their homes and able to stay in their homes, which is going to be something we're talking about in a post-COVID environment. And then back to what both the Vice Mayor and Councilwoman Pappen said, for housing preservation, it's when I've talked to some of the housing preservation entities, part of that step is identifying apartment buildings that could someday possibly be sold and having them on a list and begin to develop the relationships with, say, Mid-Peninsula Housing Coalition, or I know we're developing a relationship with, and I'm going blank with they've changed their names, Life Moves, with Life Moves, who also buys and restores properties. When you come back to us next month or the following month, can you talk more about a housing preservation plan? Is that something that we're capable of doing? I'm looking, oh, go ahead.
Mayor, I think that there's a lot of research that's being done through Heart and Life Moves with regards to that. It's a matter of identifying the property and reacting, because remember, they're all privately owned.
No, I understand.
You have to react and have financing in place in order to purchase.
It's
so
the
what the
revenue
Vice
that
Mayor
we would
said.
need. Yeah.
The plan is to have money. I mean,
yeah, and
that
is one thing. So Darcy Smith, Community Development Director. So we will bring back the fees that I think will ultimately get you where you want to be. But as I mentioned, we pretty much depleted our affordable housing fund that was a carryover from years past with the contribution of 2.88 million to the core project. And what we really need to do now is not do a preservation plan, but work on rebuilding that fund and collecting in lieu and impact fees. And then when the fund balance increases to, over a reasonable amount, then we'll come back to you with a fund implementation plan. But in my conversations with Heart and HIP and other organizations, they're looking for city funds for the preservation of those units. And at this point, we just don't have enough of a fund balance to contribute.
Okay. All right.
Well, can I point out the county was also offering to step in our county meeting. They were looking for buildings that they could help purchase. I think those might have been along the lines for, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor.
No, go ahead.
For hotels and motels, I think.
Yeah, homeless assistance. So I don't think we have any here, but I am aware that the county was looking to purchase for that purpose.
Okay. Yeah, I've read all the articles about converting hotels. I don't think we're wanting to convert any of our hotels when travel goes back to normal. Okay. Opening up. I'm sorry, Vice Mayor.
I just was going to make one more point, just for the preservation. The key to preservation is the cost of building an affordable housing unit is about $1 million, somewhere in that category. Darcy would know better than me. But preservation is probably down to about $700,000 a unit. So that's where affordable housing can be. The cost factor is so much better if we can actually, like Darcy said, build our funds up and be able to come up and be able to do that. But we need the money and able to play the game. And it could be much, much less expensive and better for our community if we just save the money for that fund.
Excellent. And we'll have in lieu fees and the other fees then in a month or so. Opening up, and thank you, Vice Mayor. It's also, to be honest, it's a climate change action. Adaptive reuse of existing buildings is by far more climate change oriented than building from scratch. So it gives us double counts on things. Opening it up to public comment. City Clerk, could you please unmute Nathan Chan? Hello, Nathan. As soon as you are unmuted.
He is unmuted.
Yes, great. Thank you, City Council, for the opportunity to speak to you on this important issue. You probably know me by now and my interest in this housing issue and as it applies to Millbrae specifically. I do think that we should be proud of the fact that we've met our RHNA goals or are close to meeting our RHNA goals at the above moderate income level. But I do really think it's important to emphasize the income levels below that. If we don't build enough housing units that are affordable to people making those lower incomes, this will only drive displacement and make Millbrae less affordable and make it a less racially and economically diverse community over the long term. So I think it's very, very important for us to commit to meeting those numbers. I'm very encouraged, though, by what Community Director Smith mentioned about coming proposals to address this. In Housing Leadership Council's 2018 report, they mentioned some city policy ideas that could be used to meet lower income housing needs, and the inclusionary ordinances and linkage fees were among those. And most of the other cities in San Mateo County have some or all of those. At the time the report was published, Millbrae did not. So this is, I would perceive to be a low-hanging fruit in this area. I also know that other cities have been having some trouble meeting the lower income RHNA targets. I know Redwood City has, is probably one of the cities that's built the most housing, but even they are having trouble meeting that. So this is definitely a shared issue. I did want to draw your attention to one campaign that is ongoing right now. Some of you might know that some years ago, there was a bill passed in the state legislature to create a Bay Area Housing Authority that would create a way to provide technical and financial assistance to cities to meet their RHNA targets. And there's a letter going around, Bay Area Housing for All, to try to get that authority funded with funds out of the state general fund. The city of Oakland and the city of San Jose have currently signed on to this. It would be great to see Millbrae and other cities from San Mateo County sign on to this as well. I think this would be a great resource that the state is trying to make available to cities who want to meet this affordable housing challenge. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chan. And to the council, just so that you know, Nathan Chan is now one of the members of the California High-Speed Rail Stakeholders Group representing the Sierra Club. So we finally have somebody who lives in Millbrae on that stakeholders group. So I am glad he's watching our efforts to build housing and how high-speed rail has stopped the production of housing. Next up, Jonathan Lowe. Welcome, Jonathan.
Hi, thank you for your time. Thank you especially to Mayor Schneider and Councilmember Pappen for bringing up ADUs, because that's what I want to talk about. I want to bring attention to a city policy that disincentivizes development of ADUs in certain areas, and that is parking permits. So currently, parking permits are limited to a maximum of 4 per residents. And that I feel like that disincentivizes development of rental units, because that just limits the number of people who can live on that plot of land. I personally live in Zone B, and I have some neighbors whose are families that live with their adult children. Each of them have a car. So that family by themselves maxes out on the number of parking permits allowed. So even if they decide to build like a new rental unit, there's not that many renters that would want to live there, because they are disincentivized from having a car parked on the street, or they're not allowed to. I feel like if we're going to make a serious push of going forward for encouraging low income and very low income housing units, we have to increase the limit of parking permits. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Mr. Lee.
Which Lee?
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Former Mayor Wayne Lee.
Thank you. Just a quick comment. I think, yeah, the city, we've been working on this project for a long time, and I think it's great that we have a lot of people engaged in trying to solve this issue. When I was on the housing committee and subcommittee with the Associated Bay Area governments, they're trying to produce a toolkit, and the council probably is not aware of this, but the staff is. And this toolkit also helps city find financing for low-income housing. So maybe you can get a briefing from the city staff at some point in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Any further comments from the public? I don't see any other hands raised. Elaine, do you have anyone on the phone?
I do not.
Okay, seeing none, closing public comment. Any further comments from council? All right, I don't see any other comments or any other hands raised. If I'm missing anyone, speak up. All right, if I could have a motion to accept the Housing Element Annual Progress Report for 2020 and authorize the transmittal to the California Department of Housing and Community Development and the Governor's Office of Planning and Research.
Happen, move. And can we add what the mayor suggested about explaining HIP housing and how that assists us? It might encourage some legislation in the future.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, if we can call the question.
Councilmember Hollenberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Fung.
Aye.
Councilmember Pappen.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Leva.
Aye.
Mayor Snyder.
Aye.
The City Council accepted the Housing Element Annual Progress Report for 2020 and authorized the transmittal to California Department of Housing and Community Development and the Governor's Office of Planning and Research by the vote of 5-0, including a letter regarding, sorry, I missed.
A letter including the description of what HIP housing is and any of the other programs Millbrae has done to find affordable housing.
Okay, sorry about that.
It's more clearly said to assist people in housing or providing housing for other people, I guess.
Okay, well, thank you. And staff, good work on that. It is a huge issue and the fight will continue. And moving on to that, we have council comments, which we haven't had enough time for, but we've got enough time. Council, I have one request. This is something the city clerk and I have been working on. When you get a chance, if you could please send to the city clerk your standing regional and other committee assignments so that we make sure they're recognized on the council calendar. So, you know, if MTC meets on the first Thursday of the whatever, make sure that Elaine knows that, and we'll get all of your assignments onto the council calendar. With that, Councilman Hollenberg, actually, I think, Gina, I see you're working there. Why don't we start with Councilman Fung? So I'm not always picking on Councilman Hollenberg first.
That's all right. Thank you. So last couple of weeks, there's several meetings. First of all, you have the Legislative Council. We've been looking for solutions to replace gas tax as we expect gas tax to continue to dwindle, right? Because, you know, people are using more electric cars now. So we've been looking for legislative options and trying to, from pilot programs based on usage on the highway. And so that's still, you know, it's a major equity issue, right? Because we need to be mindful about how, you know, a lot of these people who come into the Bay Area and work, you know, traditionally they have been priced out of the market. So, you know, they may be unfairly taxed based on how many miles they travel. So this is remaining a discussions. And also housing is also another big piece of legislations that the Ledge Committee has been discussing. And also participated in the homeless subcommittee with Vice Mayor. Happy to report that the county finally acknowledged that transit is one of the major issues as to why we're having transits in in the city of Millbrae. So, and then we're also getting some additional fundings to help outreach to some of the transients here in city of Millbrae. Hoping to put a program together, and then I'll let the Vice Mayor a little bit later to give us a little bit more detail on that. That's all for now.
Excellent. Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Pappen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, update, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission is meeting tomorrow. Their proposed programming of approximately $802 million of the Coronavirus Response and Relief Appropriations Act of 2021. This applies to all the transit agencies. There are 27 transit agencies in the Bay Area. Their ridership is down 80%. I think the average is 77%, with the bus companies or Samtrans recovering more quickly. The priority is in trying to get people back on, or comfortable enough to get back on public transit. There have been strides made, thankfully, finally, at the Millbrae BART station to coordinate the BART trains with the Caltrain so that people are not waiting around too long or running just to catch a train. And also recently they actually adjusted the drop off for the BART train so that it's closer to the Caltrain. So these are very positive progressions into recreating transit so that it is more user-friendly and more accessible to people. The ridership will not likely recover for the next 2 years to the point of getting near normal. So this is what the $802 million is supposed to help them through. It will help them through this fiscal year. And then beyond that, there will be other funds available. But in order to preserve air quality and all this stuff, we do have to try to encourage people to get back on transit if they go back to work. And it's a huge part of our community. And I am happy to see that certain advances are made. We are also, some of us, still working on transit stations and access to transit stations not being deteriorated, which is happening at Millbrae, but we're working on really improving the overall system as a whole throughout the entire region. So there is funding there, and we're all trying to work together to make it more efficient. I will say that tomorrow night, Samaritan House is having their fundraising event, which is a great part of our community. It is a virtual main event, and it is a lot of fun. If you haven't participated before, I encourage you to do so. You can find the information online there. And I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but that's all I have for now. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Vice Mayor Oliva.
Okay, so I have been very busy actually since our last council meeting. One of the fun things to report out is the senior stories. And Senior Advisory Committee is actually taken a little direction where they've gotten the history of a handful of Millbrae residents and how they grew up, where they're from, and how their life transpired into Millbrae and what they've done and such. The next senior story is coming up, and it's going to be from they actually asked our staff member Jeff to come forward and tell his story. So if you guys could watch for that, it's kind of cool. It's very cool, and interesting to learn everybody's background and their stories. We've continued to add that because, as everybody knows, that some seniors are stuck in their house. So this is a little storytelling that allows for them to not watch it on the TV, but watch it on a Zoom with their friends, and it's been quite a big hit. I've attended the SAL board meetings, and SAL's and they are survivors. They have been so resilient in this COVID. with the amount of children that and teens that they take care of throughout our community. And they've come up with some amazing creative ideas, and that staff is kudos to them. The board, of course, we got put on hold with our fundraising and such, but actually, I was talking to our city manager today. We attended that fundraiser about 2 years ago. We missed this year, and it was, hopefully it'll be planned for next year. It's quite an event, and I'm going to start hyping it up right now so we can get everybody involved and everybody to participate. I'll mention the Heart Board again, which is a housing and endowment trust for the county, and I'm on a subcommittee of which there's about 8 of us that are trying to bring it to the next level. So housing being so important to all of our community in our county, all the communities in our county, our cities in the county. We're trying to put our heads together and see if we can't come up with something more robust than just complaining. I think that's the easiest way to say it. And thank you, Councilmember Fung, for mentioning the homelessness subcommittee meeting. That was quite an event. If I could congratulate our city staff for helping us to put that together. It's been a long road, but it seems like we might have some success to report very soon. And our city manager helped with that subcommittee to get together Life Moves. Everybody knows that the county gave a $600,000 grant for a pilot program for, I forget if it was 5 or 6 different cities to buy into, so that they could have a Life Moves staff to help with mental health issues and to actually be on the street. And with our engagement and wanting that and not being appointed to it, I think that we're going to figure out a way that we will have that. I'm talking very positively, but we're very close to reporting some success there. So with that, I'll leave it on a positive note.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and thanks for all that work. Councilman Holber.
Thank you. Let's see, the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting, commission met last week. There were several items that were discussed, one of which was the proposal for a disc golf course in the area that's currently being analyzed is the Spur Trail property off of Wilmita. There was a community meeting with some residents of that neighborhood last month, and I know they're planning to do some more outreach before making any decision to move forward on that. There was also a comment that request from the committee that has come up almost every meeting, and I brought this up to the city manager, but they were hoping that we could look at the old abandoned gas station up on Skyline at the top of Millbrae Avenue and Skyline Boulevard that's been fenced off for probably about 20 years or so. I know there's some toxic contamination, I believe, on the site. But there was a question of at some point, we can reach out to the property owner there and maybe see if that could eventually become, because the property owner has been paying taxes on that site, they're getting no use. So we don't know, how much remediation will be needed, but perhaps the idea for the commission is that perhaps the property owner will be willing to donate that site to the city and use it as a neighborhood park to get the tax write-off and stop them to pay property taxes there. But I think a significant remediation would likely be needed before anything can be done on the site. And that's why it's been vacant for so long. Let's see, the Sister Cities Commission met last night. I know they have done some outreach with the group that was promoting the Friendship City with Ramallah. And one of the ideas that came from that was to maybe do some type of a tree planting ceremony. One of the ideas was to do it at the recreation center site. we would plant an olive tree, and Ramallah would also plant an olive tree in Ramallah at the same time on the same day. Consul General Louis Vela from Malta also suggested that he would reach out to folks in Mosta and see if they would be willing to participate and plant an olive tree in Mosta as well, as part of the sister city solidarity that they have in Millbrae. And I know they're also looking at doing some type of a Zoom meeting with maybe with the mayor of Ramallah or some of the city officials there to try to, introduce ourselves to them at some point. So I'm glad to see that moving forward. Let's see, the Recreation Center Subcommittee is going to be meeting tomorrow, and we'll be discussing the fundraising efforts and naming rights policy. And I know we, as Vice Mayor Levy mentioned at our last meeting, we do have a city facility naming policy, so they could make sure that we're not overstepping the policy that we currently have in place. And one other thing, it has not been officially announced yet, but the San Mateo County Libraries, including Millbrae, will be reopening in mid-April. The date has not been finalized yet, but it will be likely sometime during the week of April 12th. And there should be an official announcement coming out shortly about that. So that's all that I have. Thank you.
Excellent. Councilman, would you like to talk about the meeting we had with Jan Pepper of PCE?
Sure. So the mayor and myself and the city manager and Public Works Deputy Director Cowell met with Jan Pepper from PCE to discuss some of the programs that they have and what our priorities are for the city of Millbrae and how they could be of assistance. So one thing that sort of came to the top of the list and is very time sensitive is to see if there's some way that they can assist with the recreation center with the solar panels, possibly through a power purchase agreement. So the person who works on those sustainability programs I know has been in touch with our city officials to see if that can be moving forward shortly. They also mentioned certain rebate programs that PCE has for replacing gas furnaces and gas appliances with all electric, more efficient appliances. And we discussed maybe having some type of a community meeting, community workshop to promote these rebate programs in Millbrae, have PCE be involved with that meeting. Anything else that
I think the only thing was that we talked about working with PCE on getting the better EV charging units for the new rec center and potentially battery storage when we don't know how big these battery storages are, but basically a really productive meeting and a willingness with PCE to work with the city. And kudos to Tom Williams and to Jane Cow for moving, and other staff for working with Peninsula Clean Energy and trying to get us to net zero at the new rec center. So, and thank you for Councilman Holiber as the new backup for Peninsula Clean Energy. So it's a lot to bring in and absorb, but it fits so perfectly with the rec center.
Thank you. Glad to participate in that.
Excellent. Okay. With mine, the city of Millbrae, we had a meeting between Millbrae BPAC and staff to identify the very specific regional routes that we want the county to have in their map. One of the reasons why it's important is, first of all, one of the only ways to get through Millbrae and San Bruno or Burlingame is to go out on the freeway. And that is not a safe place for an experienced rider, let alone a child. So we came up with a list of recommendations and the city sent a letter, and I will find out at BPAC this week if all of our recommendations made it in. Also with San Francisco Noise Airport Hat, the team completed a letter to go to the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, regarding a study, the first study they've done in a very long time. And the term for noise is called annoyance. So this was on a community annoyance study. And we basically sent about 4 pages of additional items that the FAA needs to look at when they're studying annoyance. Typically, they tend to completely ignore the types of noise impacts we feel by being in back of runways. So I'm excited with this letter. I don't know how it'll go with the FAA, but Congresswoman Spear had introduced 10 bills last year. She's currently working on which bills might be reintroduced on that. But it was a good step and really a tremendous letter. We've also had meetings with other roundtables around the country or with the citizen groups that work on quiet skies to become more of to share our voices across the country in dealing with the FAA. So as the airports come back from COVID, maybe we can make some small incremental changes. Part of that step, and I want to give a huge shout out to Joe Terezi. He's a retired public works employee from Palo Alto, and he and I were talking about the maps we need in the land around the airport. And Joe just gave me some incredible research on all of Millbrae's neighborhoods, how old they are, where they are, how we predate so many things. It's really exciting. And importantly, how our neighborhoods predate the airport, and the airport moved 101 closer to Millbrae and then moved the airport closer to Millbrae. What I think this ultimately will mean is some platform that we can stand on for mitigation. And I am hoping that mitigation will be all natural vegetation. So it's a climate change action and a noise action. But Joe was just fantastic. And just for those neighborhoods, our 2 oldest neighborhoods are a neighborhood I'd never heard of before, Millbrae Villa, which is Millbrae Avenue, the whole length of Millbrae Avenue from the bay to the top of the hill, and then west about 2 blocks. And for all of us who've wondered why we've got that alley stuck in the middle of Millbrae that runs between the 200 blocks of Poplar or Palm or Laurel or Ashton and the other houses and why they're so different, that was the 2 subdivisions. But actually that subdivision, even if it didn't get built, is older than the Highlands. But our real oldest neighborhood is Merino Vista Park. And it had, Joe came up with these fabulous photographs. So it'll go to community development staff to be working on what the tools we need to get into place so that when we work on noise mitigation from the airport, from 101, from Managed Lane, from Caltrain, from BART, from high-speed rail, and Caltran, because of El Camino and 280, we have some grounds to start with in terms of we were here first and none of you have ever done any noise mitigation. So it's kind of exciting. I also want to say the Mills High School, Cappuccino High School football game is back. I believe they're going to have their football game on April 16th. So the mayor of San Bruno and I were talking about what we will have to do depending on which team wins. And Rotary is having a virtual luncheon for the football players and the cheer squads. The football game is April 16th, and I think the lunch is a few days before, but another step of slightly going back in person. I don't know yet if the football game will be available for spectators. A lot of college sports are happening, but no spectators. But I'm kind of hoping that we can have spectators, will wear masks, will socially distance, and get to see Mills and Cap play. Yes, ma'am?
I think it's only parents are allowed at the game.
Oh, is it? I didn't know. So the mayor of San Bruno and I, we were just talking about it. We'll let the public know, but yay, good luck to both football teams and to both cheer squads. It's nice to have a little bit of normal coming back. And with that, I will, if there's no further comments, for those of us who went to Cappuccino, I'd like to close in the memory of Donald Leclerc. He was a teacher and a coach when I was at Cap. And also Mayor Medina, we both remember him. I see Councilwoman Pappen, who also went to Cappuccino, remembering him. He had a remarkable life. I went to school with his kids. He'll be dearly missed. Longtime Millbrae resident, longtime Cappuccino High School teacher. And to his family and his friends, our hearts go out to you and to everyone. And we will close both in the memory of a life well lived, but also in memory of the people who lost their lives in Atlanta and in Boulder. And thank you for the courage of Police Officer Eric Talley of the Boulder Police Force. Our hearts go out to his family and his friends, and also to the Boulder Police Department. So in closing, in memory of Don Leclerc and the lives lost. Thank you. Everyone be safe, be kind to each other.
Meeting is adjourned at 9:32.
All set? Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.